Our next session brings us to a unique perspective on modern business strategies. In Danda Mane Marico, we explore sustainable growth, strategic acquisitions, and digital innovation through the lens of one of India's most iconic business leaders. This session shall be moderated by Mr. Parag Shah, founder and partner at Amara Partners. And in this session, we will delve into fostering entrepreneurial ecosystem, effective talent management, and the evolving landscape of consumer brands in the digital age. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished speaker, Mr. Harsh Mariwala, Chairman of Marico Limited, as he shares with us his deep insights into what it truly means to put Danda first. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, as we welcome Mr. Mariwala and Mr. Shah to the stage.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is indeed my pleasure and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker for this evening. I don't think Mr. Harsh Mariwala really requires an introduction, but I'll say a few lines from his profile. So Mr. Mariwala is the chairman of Marico Limited, also the managing director and chairman of Kaya Limited. He established the Marico Innovation Foundation in 2003, which works towards nurturing innovations in India, and also started the Ascent Foundation in 2012, which is a peer learning entrepreneurial platform. Mr. Mariwala founded the Mariwala Health Initiative, which is the philanthropic arm to give back to the society, and they also have a family office called Sharp Ventures. He was recently awarded the prestigious Sir Jahangir Gandhi Medal for Industrial and Social Peace by XLRI, and in the recent past, he's received the AIMA Lifetime Achievement Award in 2021 and the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award for India in 2020. That's the sort of formal introduction. Through my corporate career of over 25 years, we've all known Mr. Mariwala and Harsh, as he likes to call himself. This is the organization through which many India CEOs have come out, so it's almost a factory for talent. But I had the privilege and the pleasure to get to know him a little better over the last few months, and I joined an organization where Harsh is a lead independent advisor. So I thought I'll take and just talk about one aspect of what I saw in a meeting that I was sitting with him a couple of months ago. So we were at this offsite, and we had the promoters, we had the management team, where Harsh, in his role as the lead independent advisor, was meant to make sure that the strategy offsite session gets done, they cover everything, and it gets done on time. So very interesting feedback I have, Harsh. And we realized that somewhere at about halfway mark, the session was meant to close at 7 p.m., but somewhere at the halfway mark, Harsh saw that we were sort of going off track, we were getting delayed. So he did a very simple thing. He came and told us that he will stop at 7 p.m. We have to work backwards and figure out how to get it done. That's really Dhanda first. And not only that, at 7 p.m., he went out for a workout break and told us he'll come and join us to conclude the session after dinner. And he actually did that. So that's the straight talk Harsh that I know over the last few months. For this session, Harsh, look, Dhanda first, the word it says it all. It means the same thing, that can we focus on business first, nothing else. Marico is an institution that we all look up to. It is the biggest and the best FMCG out of India. If I were to ask you Dhanda first at Marico, what would you say that means?
So let me start. Thank you very much, Parag, for that warm introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me to this gathering. I would say that to me personally and to Marico, the most important thing is growth. Growth is very crucial to any business organization because growth is like oxygen. It excites all the stakeholders, starting from promoters to employees, to associates, to society, to customers. So I think organizations have to grow. And the biggest challenge the top management faces is to have the right growth mindset. But how do you take that growth mindset all the way to the bottom? is the most important thing, because everybody in the organization should be growth focused, should be opportunity focused, And whenever there are opportunities in the marketplace, they have to tap that opportunity. So growth is very important. It's like an oxygen, but the biggest challenge is growth has to go all the way to the down. And I think over a period of time, growth has to be profitable. I don't understand so many new age businesses which go on growing but go on increasing losses. To me, it doesn't make sense. But thank God now I think many investors are getting wiser and now they are asking for quicker returns. But I think growth has to be sustainable. It has to be profitable. And one year you grow, but next year you don't grow. That's not acceptable. So I think both top line, bottom line have to go on growing every year. And that's how compounding happens, and compounding of overall business growth, your market cap, your values, or valuation, sorry. So I think that's one. Number two, I have seen that there is an organization and there are stakeholders which are connected with the organization. So there are promoters, there are employees, and many times I find that many managements are unclear what comes first. Many times there are conflicts between the promoter's interest and the organization's interest. So the thumb rule at least we follow is that the organization interest should come first. So when it came to me stepping down as managing director about 10 years back, I was not ready. And both I was a little bit younger also, and I thought I should not step down. But we discussed it in the board and concluded that I should step down because it is in the organization's interest. And just to give you one example of I think many people think that good employees, and especially at senior levels, they've done well. At some stage, if they start losing creating impact because of the change environment or because of the scale too complex for them, there is a tendency to allow them to continue. And I feel that that's not right. Again, you have to have that thumb rule. The organization's interest has to come first. Because if the organization's interests are compromised, then it will have an impact on the organization's growth. It will lead to demotivation, and that cannot happen. So I think that's my second point. The third is I would say that I think for key organizational initiatives, unrelated business, or I'll give you an example of international business. We had a thriving India business, and we saw an opportunity of going international. I'm talking of now 15, 20 years back. And every time I would ask the head of sales in India to handle the international markets. Invariably, because the Indian market was so large, it would not get the right attention. So there are enough escape buttons at his end to say that, no, I have to manage my India business. Until, out of frustration, one day we decided that we will appoint a vice president international without any international business, and that person's job will only be building international business. So that's how we entered international, and today we get about 3,000 crores turnover from international business. We have made many acquisitions, but we removed the escape buttons. And I can talk of multiple initiatives, whether it's introduction of ERP or a new business like Kaya, or recently we acquired many other D2C businesses. We've removed escape buttons to ensure that the new initiative gets full attention.
No, thank you. Since you spoke about new businesses, a lot of people in this audience are, first-time entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. They could argue and say that Marico is an institution, it has the ability to do many things, but since you've acquired businesses like Kaya, like Beardo, and 2 or 3 more, can you maybe just give a perspective that as against them being run by a financial investor, which sometimes become a conflict that even you spoke about, versus a strategic organization like Marico, how would Dhanda first there be as far as they go? I mean, what would you do differently at a Beardo or Kaya? Maybe a couple of insights on that would be useful.
So I think, first of all, these businesses are different. You have to realize that the D2C brands we have acquired 4 D2C brands. So Beardo, Just Herbs, True Elements, and Plix. And we also have our own D2C brands. Now, the mindset required to manage a D2C brand is very different from a traditional FMCG business, where you have a lot of abundance, big budgets, D2C small budgets. You have to move very, very fast. So we recruited a team much younger in age, and their job is only to manage these D2C businesses. So we have kept them at a different location. We don't want the FMCG mindset to impact them. They are employees of Marico, but younger group, and they are not they are only reporting the head of D2C business reports to the managing director. So there is, of course, there is synergy with, wherever there is synergy, we ensure that they get that synergy, but otherwise treat them separately. And in terms of profitability, you know, I think our target is that within next few years, we'll achieve the same profits or EBITDA percentage we are getting for our FMCG business in the D2C business. And we already started seeing some of the brands already turning around because we have a very strong value management framework. We also get synergies when you combine 4 or 5 brands in terms of marketing synergies, people synergies. So there's a very strong focus on ensuring that this businesses become profitable much sooner than normally they would have been under the promoter's hands when it was financed by somebody outsider.
Wonderful. Well, this is also a good time then to talk about the Ascent Foundation, Harsh. Not many people in the audience will know, but this is a foundation which actually mentors entrepreneurs. And, you know, I know there's a lot of, again, people in the audience who appreciate that. So a little bit about Harsh, and how does Ascent work and how can the entrepreneurs in the audience get in touch with the Ascent Foundation?
Yeah, so Ascent was started by me about 10 years back or so. It's an peer-to-peer learning platform for entrepreneurs where they learn from each other. We also have learning events like these. We have one conclave every year, and it was held this year in this same location, where we invite the best of the speakers. But more importantly, the learning happens when the same trust group, as we call it, they meet every month, non-compete, and they learn from each other. And in addition to that, I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs. I have, on an average, 2 boardroom sessions with a group of 10 entrepreneurs. So I give them advice as if you are operating in a board. So I think there are multiple benefits of being a member of Ascent, and this is my way of giving something back. Most of the costs are funded by me. So if anybody wants to become a member, I would say that go to www.ascentfoundation.in. You'll get all the details. You have to have a certain minimum size. I think if you're in manufacturing, it's 5 crores. If you're in services, 1 crore. And then one would get called for an interview. But I think we have a commitment fee, as we call it, because when everything was free, people were taking us lightly. So we have a commitment fee of 20,000, which will allow you to enter in many events, which will be much more valuable than 20,000 also. But I think we just introduced that so just to ensure that people take us seriously. But I can tell you that feedback is very positive. We have more than 1,100 members. The cumulative turnover of our members is more than 1 lakh crores, employing 370,000 people. And the whole objective is to scale up. And I started this because I strongly believe that it is only the entrepreneurs who will create the India growth story. Only the entrepreneurs will take us to $5 trillion, $10 trillion economy, and not the government. So I think it's very important to support entrepreneurs. And that's what I do by giving time and also supporting the whole staff which is running this.
No, this is a wonderful initiative. You know, I've of course interacted with many corporates, but I think this Ascent Foundation is unique because I think you get the personal guidance all the way from the top, and then you have the larger Marico value framework which can be applied to these smaller businesses and help the entrepreneurs. So I would surely urge, you know, budding entrepreneurs in the audience to take up that offer. If I were to move to another important subject, Harsh, and you alluded to it when you spoke about how you let go of the CEO position. One of the challenges that entrepreneurs face is when to let go. How do you hire and retain talent? You know, as startup, I've been a startup founder at one point, and we were told that you have to know everything and do everything. But then comes that inflection point where you have to maybe know everything but not do everything. Maybe a few words around your personal, how did you do the transition, and what do you see, how do you think startups should handle these transitions?
So, Parag, you're absolutely right, and I interact a lot with many entrepreneurs as a part of Ascent, or I'm also involved with some other funds, and most of them issues relating to talent. You know, how do you attract the right talent? How do you delegate? I think one must realize that when you start the business, of course, you have to do things on your own. When you have a startup, but at some stage when the business gets established, you will have to get a team. So your role shifts from doing things to getting things done. And that's a very big shift. And for that to happen, you need to have very good talent. You need to operate in a different manner wherein you have to empower the talent. Of course, they have to be very good quality talent. You have to create systems where they interact with each other. So your role is apart from doing things, getting things done, how do you ensure that the talent is motivated? How do you influence them? And of course, if need be, you have to add value. I'm not saying that. You have the right mechanisms to ensure that you have a good grip on the business. You're delegating and you're not abdicating. That means that if you delegate responsibility to one of your colleagues, you are equally responsible. You cannot say that I delegated, that's why, and he didn't do well, so I don't hold me responsible. And many entrepreneurs think that it's delegation, it's not abdication, you're not abdicating it. So you delegate to a person whom you have developed trust in terms of not only financial trust, but capability in terms of that person should be able to do the job. And one other rule which I have is that whenever that person, suppose if in the past it was reporting to me, that person should be better than me in that particular function, say a marketing head or a sales head. So then automatically if that person is better than me, then he would do a better job. And I would not mind delegating. And when you start doing that, I think you see this continuous impact on your results. So I think it's inevitable that entrepreneurs look at this very seriously. There is a very, very fierce war for talent, and this war for talent is as important as succeeding in the marketplace. So please take this issue very seriously, and that war for talent is going to accelerate over a period of time. So many times I've found entrepreneurs, we have very good business opportunity, but we can't find talent. You can't accept that. You have to create the right employee value proposition to attract talent. You have to get the right challenge. You have to create the right culture. You have to stand for something which will make people attract and come to you.
You use the word culture, and that word is used maybe a minute on culture means how does at a startup level you build that culture?
So, when we formed Marico, I think one big challenge was I was driven by a certain thought process in terms of what should be the culture. So to me, there's a very close linkage between the culture and the strategy. So what is the strategy? The organization will depend on the kind of organization or the business one is running in. And in Marico, we wanted a culture which was innovative. Because whenever we had innovated in the past, we saw discontinuous impact on our growth. And we wanted innovation to happen perpetually. That means every person in the organization should think innovation. So how do you create a culture of innovation is a big challenge. And we said that we need to have a very flat organization structure, very few hierarchies, very, very capable people across the organization so they are empowered. You have to make your employees feel like owners. That was the biggest challenge. They should grab an opportunity, they should behave like owners. And for that to happen, you have to empower them. You have to remove the organizational bureaucracy. You have to ensure that there is high degree of openness and there is interaction between individuals continuously and not bound by some boundaries of interfunctional issues and things like that. So we did that. We also went into open organization, very trusting. And the biggest deterrent to innovation is the fear of failure, People don't want to take a risk because there is a fear that if I take a risk and if it fails, it will have a negative impact on my future. You have to remove that fear of failure. And if somebody takes a risk, which is an intelligent way of doing it, but it still doesn't do well, I think organizations cannot punish that individual in terms of giving lesser increment or not getting promotion. Because if you do that, then everybody in the organization will stop taking risks. So you have to encourage experimentation. You have to encourage risk-taking. And I think, as I said, culture starts with values. What kind of values will lead to a certain culture? Will lead to a certain behavior, which will create a certain strong culture. For example, if you're an airline, you need to have a safety as a very, very important part of your culture, So I think depending on what are the critical elements which are required to succeed in your business, you would identify the values which will take you towards that and define that values and take reinforcements of behaviors on a perpetual basis. On a continuous basis, you have to go on instilling in them those values and those behaviors so that over a period of time, you create a strong culture.
Great. Well, and again, I'm going to just use some of the words that you are expanding on values. We are hearing from time to time a lot of blow-ups because of governance, corporate governance. Many people come and say that we'll worry about governance once we have become sized enough, scaled enough, while logically the argument should be it's part of that culture, the value system. Can you expand a bit more on?
No, no, you are absolutely right, Parag. The three things when I talk about business, one is how do you create a right to win, which is how do you be two steps ahead of your competition in the marketplace, whether it's a innovation, technology, some pioneering initiative, whatever it is. Number two is talent and culture, and the third is governance. I think irrespective of the size of the organization, governance has to play a very, very important role. Because if you start taking shortcuts, and the whole culture is taking shortcuts in the organization, when you grow, people will continue to take shortcuts. And if it hits you in terms of, if you're found out doing something which is wrong, it will put you back by many, many years. So please take this issue of governance very, very seriously from day one.
Wonderful. Well, a great moment talking about governance and culture. We also have Mr. Narayan Murthy who just walked in, so perfect timing, sir. Moving now to a little bit of, if I were to say, crystal ball gazing, a little bit of future, couple of broad questions for you here. Marico was, of course, built at a point in time when things were different, world was different. If you had to build a Marico today, how would you go about doing it? And on this one, also add in maybe the parts around future, technology, you know, how the whole digital part. Can you expand a bit on, you know, you building Marico today?
I think there is 7 seconds left, but should I just continue for 3-4 minutes? Okay.
Please, don't worry about that. Please.
No, I think that every person has a certain or few God-given gifts, and most of us don't know what our gifts are. And I'm a big, big believer in identifying one's strengths and leveraging those strengths. So, and each one has weaknesses also. My weakness is I can't deal with bureaucrats, for example. I can't be in a B2B business and go on making sale of our products. That's not me. So I have to be in a business which leverages my strength. I understand consumers. So if I had to start a business now, I would say that I would definitely look at consumer products, but it is done in a different way today. It's D2C brands and leveraging technology, which is very, very crucial. And then, what are the passions you have? My passion is health, and the whole issue of health, preventive health, is getting a lot of traction. So if at all you ask me to start a new business, it will be something in the area of health where I don't have to go to the government or I don't have to go to B2B customers. And by leveraging technology, I will leverage my strengths and my passions. And of course, you have to take risks. You will fail, but every person fails. And the only way to move forward is to fail and learn from those failures. So go on learning. It's okay. You'll have to go on pivoting depending on what you started. And most of businesses start in a certain way and pivot to something else and something else over a period of time.
Great, and I'm glad you spoke about passion because an earlier panelist, Mr. Kedia, spoke about, as an investor, how he looks for the first thing is the passion and the fire in the belly. So you're absolutely right.
I think passion combined with perseverance and determination, that's great. I like the word great more than passion.
Wonderful. I'll then move on to last question from my side. And this is a little bit of crystal ball gazing, if I were to say. Consumer, a lot of entrepreneurs here wanting to build out consumer brands. So how do you see the future of consumer brands evolving? What trends you think will shape the industry in the coming years?
See, I think we have to look at certain trends which are happening, and many of them are global trends. I had gone to US about maybe 7-8 years back, and I saw trends of health, natural, organic. I think the COVID, all the trends got accelerated. So I think at one level, at a consumer, I think there is a higher degree of wanting to know what the product contains. It has to be not just healthy, but you have to have the right ingredients. So today's consumer is far more purpose-led. The brands have to be purposeful. And it has to do something which is good for the society and not just the consumer themselves. I think then the whole sales is getting transformation with the emergence of e-commerce and QCOM and whatnot. So I think the whole consumer experience is changing at a consumer level. In the earlier days, there was family brands, then went into now individual brands. There was segmentation. Now there is micro-segmentation with D2C brands coming in. So it's getting complex, but that also provides opportunities for new entrepreneurs to look at a micro-segment and be a part of that.
Wonderful. So look, this is coming to the end of the session, and I have to say that what I'm amazed by is it's seldom we meet someone who has gone through the full journey, 0 to 1 of a business, to 1 to 10, 1 to 100, and then of course where Marico today is at billions of dollars of market cap, and Harsh has not only seen that journey, but is continuously doing that through his investments at Marico or through the foundations or the family offices, and therefore is able to quickly connect the dots on what businesses should be at the start while they have the North Star, to be listed and go beyond. So thank you for taking the time out today, Harsh. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you,
And I'm
Parag.
sure
Thank
the
you.
audience
Thank
has
you for
enjoyed
inviting
this.
me.
Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause, please, for Mr. Harsh Mariwala and, of course, Mr. Parag Shah for moderating that session. Mr. Shah, I request you to please present Mr. Mariwala with a token of appreciation on behalf of Tycon. Mr. Mariwala, thank you so much for that compelling exploration of modern business practices and the spirit of Dhanda First. A huge round of applause once again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Shah.